Christmas time is a very dangerous time.
And Hanukkah time also.
Lots of candles either way. Lots of really hot lights, fire or otherwise.
There's a stat about fire during the holiday seasons, and I have forgotten it completely, but it's bad.
And we've lived it.
Both of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about the fire.
Which one? My family's had a lot, actually, as it turns out. We had a cat, Figaro. She was very fluffy. Gonna mention, she didn't die via fire. Do not worry, there is no cat death in this story. She lived a very long life.
Trigger warning, no cats die.
Yeah, don't worry, no cats die here. However, at one point she had singed her own whiskers, and then she was walking kind of funny. Another time, this one I actually had to talk to my father about, because I wasn't sure how they put the cat out. My memory of it, I didn't have my hearing all the way at the time, so I could only hear things if somebody was like really screaming, and it's the reason why cat was my first word. And when Dad heard me say the word cat, I said it in a whisper, and that's how he realized, oh, Rowan can't actually hear. And the reason that I could hear the word cat is because of this incident, where Figaro walked by the Hanukkah candles, and then her tail, her fluffy, fluffy tail, was lit aflame. And apparently it wasn't like totally whoosh, whole tail. It was actually like just the tip of the tail. My memory of it was much scarier. But my family, for whatever reason, their reaction to this was to point at the cat and just yell, cat, 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 cat. Eventually, someone went over and just put the cat out, which, according to my dad, was a matter of just, like, touching the cat's tail. Just, like, clapping it to make the fire go out in the tip of the tail. And, fur regrew eventually, and she was fine. But,
how did the cat feel about this scenario? Was it just like, what? I am a cat.
I mean, this is a cat who would be on a counter and just wait for my father to be on the phone, because he would pace on the phone. And she would just swat at him as he went by, back and forth. So she wasn't, like, a fan of all the people in the house anyway.
Seeing a cat on fire, you start chasing, it's just going to run faster, and then more things will be on fire.
They're yelling cat, 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 and going after to then clap the tail in order to get... So that was one Hanukkah-related fire story. But I have others. Do you want to...
So this is the fire that almost killed the entire family. We're okay.
You made it.
It was a Christmas miracle that we didn't all incinerate. So, growing up, my mom was very into like the Martha Stewart aesthetic, and I had a lot of stuffed animals. So, come Christmas time, we would deck out the tree, and this is when the Christmas tree bulbs with those huge honking color bulbs
they'd get
with like
hot.
the point, they get hot.
Yeah.
So she took a couple of my animals, like, we're going to include them in Christmas. And she put them around the tree. And one of my teddy bears, sometime in the night, just tipped and leaned into one of those lights. And when we got up Christmas morning, it was sizzling.
It had been lobotomized.
It lobotomized my teddy bear.
Oh, no.
I got to keep it. I did not let them throw away that teddy bear. But it was a hole just seared into its head, between its eye and its ear. Just like this, like, I remember like a golf ball sized divot.
Now you kept
of
it.
Char.
Did you keep it because it was your teddy bear and you loved it? Or did you keep it to, like, use as leverage against your mom?
I'm a pure child. I do not think of things like leverage. I kept it because I loved it. And this teddy bear, like, it had already been through stuff. You can't throw it away.
Oh.
He needs love. He's injured.
This makes me feel better about the fact that I fixed up one of your stuffed animals.
Oh my god, it was so...
Your mom handed me Puppy.
My fucking heart melted.
And this poor dog thing...
had been chewed on by a dog, so it was missing an eye. It was missing its nose.
Yeah.
It fucking... The Velveteen Rabbit threadbare thing.
A lot of stuffing
all the
was gone.
stuffing had just compacted into, like... Because I carried that thing around for 5 years.
So I did surgery. I emptied out all the stuffing, I replaced all the stuffing, and I found, as close as I possibly could to the remaining eye, a pair of new eyes to replace
the
both
nose
of the
you
eyes.
found was perfect, because you
And
didn't
the
get the
nose.
speckling. It's all...
Like, I did research.
It's so awful.
Because she, your mom handed this to me. It was just like, I don't want this.
I love
You're
you
the
so
wife. This is your problem now.
You weren't wife at the time.
She knew I was going to be.
We weren't yet engaged, I don't think.
Everyone looked at us and went, "This is marriage."
That
This
is true. We're on our third date. Like
Right.
it was very obvious that we would be a partnership.
So I had to fix it.
Mm.
And
And you did. And now he's just on the shelf, safe from dogs.
Yeah. And the teddy bear story you just told actually reminded me of a story I was not at, but it's another hot bulb story.
Okay.
Because the light bulbs that go on Christmas trees have just gotten better and better over the years and safer and safer.
Yeah, now you have little LEDs. They're cold to the touch.
Right. So the ones of the 90s were still not necessarily great.
I don't even think the ones we had were the ones from the 90s. I think my mom had her parents' old ones.
Then it might have been the same problem my dad had. My dad wanted a Christmas tree, and his father said, absolutely not. We can get you a Hanukkah bush. Which, by the way, like, you hear people talk about, like, oh yeah, Jews have Hanukkah. Only as a joke. Like, I've never heard of a Jewish person actually having a Hanukkah bush unironically. So, he was allowed to have this bush, but it wasn't a real bush, it was a plastic bush. And then they put lights on it, and then it started to melt. And that sounds like the most toxic thing I've ever heard of. But my other fire story.
Yes.
I did have a phobia of clowns, briefly, in my youth. And more as an adult, I'm piecing things together and realizing why that might have been. How that might have come to be. Poor Cranberry the Clown, that's another story.
Oh boy.
But this clown was a Mylar balloon. A round Mylar balloon with crepe paper arms and legs, little hands and feet. And we think that maybe this had been purchased for my birthday, and that it was just leftover, because Mylar balloons last way longer than regular balloons, just by the nature of what they're made of. You know?
Yeah.
And, so this might have been for my birthday in November, and then Hanukkah is either late November or it's in December, depending on how many months of the Hebrew calendar there that changes. And this Mylar balloon danced nearby, floated nearby, the Hanukkah candles. And Hanukkah candles, sometimes there's only 2 of them, and they're small. But then sometimes there's 9 of them.
Yeah, you're just supposed to leave them burning, so that's like 10-15 minutes of candle.
Right. And, depending on the day, it's more or less of a fire hazard, depending on the amount of candles. So...
I wonder if you can track, like, house fires and just watch a steady rise through Hanukkah.
As the week goes on. Maybe. We were always very careful about where we put the Hanukkah candles. At least
most
after this. Apparently it wasn't a before this situation, because this Mylar balloon decided to hang out with the Hanukkah candles. And then...
Well, there was an updraft and it was pulling in air, so the Mylar was just like, I'll go over here.
Yeah. And so by the time we noticed it, here's this happy face. It was still smiling. It was still smiling as it bobbed really slowly along on fire. Just poosh, fire, slowly floating. Just a little blimp of death.
I'm impressed it kept floating, because you'd think they'd just burn a hole in the Mylar and the thing would just whoosh.
Kept going. And it was going toward the curtains. And if it made it to the curtains, the house would have burned down, we all would have died. My father didn't do anything. He was just kind of in shock. He was just staring at the whole thing like, what is happening? My mother grabbed it. And there's the problem.
The on fire Mylar.
The on fire Mylar. She didn't grab like a blanket or something to put on it. She just grabbed it and put it out. Like, to her credit, she put out this fire. She saved the house.
Mom's a tough lady.
But the Mylar burned into her hands and like welded into her skin. It didn't leave a lasting scar. She was fine. Like,
wasn't comfortable,
but wow, holy crap. And there was one little... My parents never fought, ever. It took a lot for my parents to ever have a disagreement. The only time I ever heard them argue was about whether the word is frog or frag, and the answer is frog. Ribbit, ribbit, frog. So, my dad said, why did you do that? Why did you grab it with your bare hands? My mother said, well, better than what you were doing. You were just standing there with your mouth open. Which is fair.
Ooh, he got burned worse than she did.
Like, fair. This is also the woman where every time there was a bee, like in the house, Dad and I would do nothing. Mom would come over with a cup and take care of it. Did like it was nothing. She was fearless. We are not. My father and I are dramatic, and we are not fearless.
You're not dramatic.
But yeah, lots of fire.
It's amazing any of us survived the 80s.
Right? There was a lot of fire.
There's a lot of people our age. They all have like stories along this line where it's just like we were millimeters from everyone dying.
Yeah, just always on the verge of fiery death. And I will remember that clown forever. I almost want to do a separate video about all the other horrible clowns that led to my brief phobia.
Comment if you want to hear a video about horrible clowns.
Because I got tales, let me tell you.
I have to search. I really don't have much interaction with clowns.
I've had a weird amount. And then poor Cranberry, she did nothing wrong.
I have to say, and this is not a dig, it's just an earnest thing. I'm not surprised that you've had more than one storyable interactions with clowns. That is not a surprising thing to me.
I'm friends now with a lot of, like, goth clowns. Sexy goth clowns.
Save it for the clown stories. Like for clown stories.
Rock on?
Rock on.